Every hotel has a room guests are never told about. At the Grand Aurora, it's room 999. For 30 years, the door has never opened. Not for cleaning, not for inspection, not even for the owners who built the tallest, most photographed hotel in Europe. And every year, on the same quiet Tuesday in October, an anonymous wire transfer lands in the hotel's account. $5 million. No name attached, no explanation given. Just one instruction, repeated for 3 decades. Keep the room exactly as it is. Sophie had heard the rumors on her first day. Everyone had a theory. A murder covered up, a mistress hidden away, a scandal too expensive to let breathe. The older staff liked to whisper about it over coffee breaks, each version a little wilder than the last. But rumors get old fast when nobody has proof, and after 2 years managing the Aurora's East Wing, Sophie had learned to stop asking questions the hotel didn't want answered. Until the night the payment didn't arrive. For the first time in 30 years, October came and went, and the money never showed up. The head office panicked quietly, the way old money always does behind closed doors. In hushed phone calls, in meetings Sophie wasn't invited to. She caught fragments of it anyway. A director's voice, low and tight, saying the words "legal exposure" too many times in one sentence. A general manager who suddenly couldn't make eye contact with her in the hallway. Something was wrong, and for the first time, nobody upstairs seemed to know how to fix it. She noticed the tension. She noticed the master key left carelessly on an unattended desk. And she noticed something inside her that had been waiting 2 years for exactly this moment. She told herself she was just checking on the room, making sure nothing was wrong. That was the lie she needed to walk down that hallway at 11 at night. Her heart beat louder than her footsteps on the marble floor. The corridor lights on the 9th floor buzzed faintly, casting long shadows that seemed to bend toward the one door nobody used. The key turned easier than she expected. The air inside hit her first cold, still, and strangely floral, as if someone had just left flowers on the table and walked out seconds ago. But the flowers were dust, preserved somehow, in a way that shouldn't have been possible. A wedding dress hung near the window, ivory silk untouched by 30 years of sunlight, protected by curtains that had never once been opened. On the nightstand, a gold watch ticked softly, wound by a hand that hadn't touched it in decades. 2 champagne glasses sat on a silver tray, one lipstick mark still faintly visible on the rim of one, as if the toast had simply been paused, not finished. And on the desk, beneath a layer of careful dust, sat a leather diary with initials pressed into the cover. D.M. Sophie sat on the edge of a bed no one had slept in for 30 years, and she began to read. The diary belonged to a man named Daniel. Not a killer, not a criminal. A young entrepreneur who had built something the world desperately needed, clean energy technology that could have changed everything if it had ever made it to market. His entries were full of plans, sketches, half-finished equations, and in the margins, over and over, one name, Isabella. He wrote about her the way people write when they don't know anyone else will ever read it. Her laugh, her impatience, the way she used to steal his coffee just to watch him pretend to be annoyed. He wrote about the wedding they were planning, 3 weeks away, in this very hotel, in this very room. He wrote about the life they were going to build once the deal closed, a house by the coast, mornings with no meetings, a future that felt so close he could almost touch it. And then, on the last page he ever filled, the handwriting changed, rushed, pressed harder into the paper, as if he was running out of time to say it. If I don't come back, tell her I kept my promise. I always will. The entries stopped there. No explanation, no warning, just silence, 30 years thick. Sophie didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Somewhere between the diary and the dress and the watch that refused to stop ticking, She had stopped being a hotel manager checking on an empty room. She had become someone who needed to know what happened to Daniel. The company records were sealed, but Sophie had spent 2 years learning which doors in this hotel could be quietly opened if you asked the right person the right way. A retired security director who still owed the Aurora a favor. A lawyer who used to work for the family that owned Daniel's company. Now long retired and lonely enough to talk. A journalist who had chased this story once, 30 years ago, and hit a wall of silence so absolute it ended his career. "You're not the first person to go looking," the journalist told her over the phone, his voice rough with age. "You're just the first one who didn't quit." Piece by piece, a different story emerged. Not a runaway groom, not a man who got cold feet and vanished. Daniel had been sent on a mission he never talked about, publicly protecting the intellectual property behind his clean energy breakthrough from a group of investors who preferred it stay buried because it threatened industries worth billions. He flew out 3 weeks before his wedding, promising Isabella he'd be back in time to walk down the aisle. He never landed. The official report called it an accident. Off the record, one retired investigator told Sophie something colder. It wasn't an accident. It was a message sent to anyone else who thought about finishing what Daniel started. Isabella never remarried. She spent the rest of her life half believing the version everyone else believed, that Daniel simply left her, that he panicked, ran, and never had the courage to say goodbye. Friends said she kept a suitcase packed for almost a year, certain he'd walk back through the door and explain everything. He never did. She died still not knowing the truth. But someone knew. Someone inside Daniel's company had known from the beginning, and instead of correcting the story, they made a different choice. They protected his promise instead of his reputation. Every year, for 30 years, someone paid to keep this room frozen, not to hide a scandal, but to preserve the one place where Daniel's love for Isabella still existed exactly as he left it. Sophie found the answer to who was still paying in the last place she expected. A single line in the old lawyer's private files. The payments weren't corporate money. They came from a private account belonging to Daniel's closest friend and business partner, the only person who knew the real reason he disappeared. He had grown old keeping this secret, carrying it quietly through decades of his own success, his own family, his own life. And this year, for the first time, his estate had quietly closed. He had passed away that summer, taking the last living memory of Daniel's final days with him. The payment stopped because the man keeping the promise finally couldn't anymore, which meant someone else now had to decide what happened next. Sophie thought about deleting everything she found, walking away, letting room 999 stay a mystery, the way it had always been. It would have been easier, safer. Nobody at the hotel would have ever known how far she'd gone. But she thought about Isabella, spending decades believing she wasn't loved enough to be told the truth. She thought about a woman going to sleep every night for 30 years, quietly convinced she had been abandoned by the one person who had promised to never leave. And she thought about a granddaughter Isabella had left behind, a woman named Claire, who still lived 2 hours from the hotel and had grown up hearing her grandmother's story told wrong. Sophie found her on a quiet Sunday afternoon and told her everything. Claire didn't cry right away. She sat with it, the way people do when a truth is too big to feel all at once, turning an old photograph over in her hands as if it might change what it showed her. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "Can I see the room?" Standing in the doorway of room 999 for the first time, Claire touched the wedding dress her grandmother never got to wear, and she finally understood something that had confused her entire life. Her grandmother hadn't been abandoned. She had been loved so completely that a dying man's last thoughts were about keeping a promise he never got the chance to keep in person. The hotel didn't renew the anonymous arrangement. There was no one left to pay it. But the family made a different choice. They kept the room exactly as it was, not out of obligation anymore, But out of understanding, some rooms aren't meant to be occupied. They were meant to hold the version of love that never got the chance to grow old. Room 999 still exists today. The door still stays locked, but for a different reason now. Not secrecy, not shame, just quiet respect for a truth that took 30 years and one curious young woman to finally come home. Because in the end, the room was never protecting a secret. It was protecting a promise that outlived the man who made it, and somehow, that made it more alive than any room that's ever been slept in.